The dry wind carried more than dust. That morning it carried destiny. A distant drumbeat echoed across the valley. Thomas looked up and saw a group of riders approaching from the east. At their head rode an Apache chief, his feathered headdress catching the light like a crown of thunder Thomas had ever seen. They were tall as oaks, fierce as the desert storms, their braided hair flowing like rivers of midnight. The chief dismounted with grace that only age and pride could forge. His eyes met Thomas's, calm yet unyielding. "White man," he said in a deep, measured voice, "you once saved my son from the river flood. I have not forgotten." Thomas nodded cautiously. "I did what any man would have done." The chief's expression hardened. "Not every man would have risked his life for one of mine." He turned toward the three women. "My daughters owe you a debt that cannot be measured in silver or horses." Thomas's pulse quickened as the chief continued. "From this day forward, they will stay under your roof. You will give them shelter, food, and honor. In return, they will guard your land." Thomas blinked, unsure he'd heard correctly. "Stay here, in my barn?" The chief nodded once, the feathers of his headdress rustling like dry leaves. "They are not ordinary women. They are my blood giant sisters born under the thunder moon. Their strength is their gift, and your burden." The three women stepped forward, shadows falling long across the dirt. Each bore a mark painted across her shoulders, symbols of the Apache spirits. Their eyes glowed with quiet power, yet behind that power, there was sadness await they carried silently. Thomas swallowed hard. "Chief, I don't know if I can." The old man raised a hand. "You can, because the spirits have chosen you." His voice carried on the wind like a decree carved into stone. "You're going to be their husband." The words struck Thomas like lightning. He stood frozen as the echo faded into the desert silence. The three sisters watched him, unreadable. One of them, taller than the rest, tilted her head slightly, a faint smile touching her lips. "Don't be afraid, rancher," she said softly. "The spirits don't make mistakes." Night fell heavy over the ranch, painting the barn in silver moonlight. Thomas couldn't sleep. The chief's final words echoed in his mind. "You're going to be their husband." It sounded less like a blessing and more like a command from fate itself. Inside the barn, the three giant sisters moved quietly, their presence filling the space with an aura of mystery. Thomas watched from a distance, unsure whether to feel honored or terrified. The eldest tended the fire, her hands steady and sure. The second, sharp-eyed and restless, examined the tools and walls as though memorizing every inch of his world. The youngest hummed a low melody that seemed to make the wind pause to listen. Thomas finally gathered courage and approached. "You can stay here for the night," he said. "I'll fix a place in the house tomorrow." The eldest looked down at him, her expression calm. "We do not need comfort. The earth is our bed, and the sky is our roof." Her voice was deep, echoing like the canyon walls. The youngest smiled faintly, adding, "But we thank you, husband." The word hit Thomas again, husband. He stammered, "There's been some misunderstanding." The second sister stepped closer, her shadow towering over him. "The chief's word is law. You are bound to us until the spirits release you." Thomas's breath caught. He looked up at her, at them, and realized the truth. He was no longer the master of this land. Something greater had claimed it, and him with it. Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance, though the sky was clear. The sisters turned toward the sound, eyes bright as lightning. The eldest whispered, "The spirits are watching. They will test you soon." Thomas stood silent, the chill crawling down his spine. He didn't yet know what the test would be, but as the drums began to echo faintly again, across the desert, he felt the first stirrings of destiny closing its grip. Dawn broke with a strange stillness. No birds sang. No wind moved. It was as if the world itself held its breath. The barn door was open, light spilling across the yard. The eldest turned toward him. "It begins," she said simply. Thomas frowned. "What begins?" "The test," replied the second, her tone sharp as flint. "The spirits will measure your worth, husband of our fate." Thomas opened his mouth to protest, but the ground trembled beneath his feet. A dust storm gathered on the horizon, swirling like a living thing. The youngest sister stepped forward, her long hair whipping in the wind. "Do not run," she warned softly. "If you flee, your soul will be claimed by the desert." The storm hit like a wave, blinding Thomas in a whirl of sand and light. He shielded his face, but when he looked again, the ranch was gone. He stood in a vast canyon of red rock and thunderclouds, alone except for the three sisters, who now seemed even larger, their forms glowing faintly with spirit fire. The eldest spoke first, her voice echoing across the canyon. "You were chosen not by us, but by the ancestors. They saw courage in you the day you saved the chief's son. But courage must be proven." A shadow appeared behind her, tall, dark, and shifting like smoke. It took the shape of a massive bison spirit, its eyes burning amber. The second sister gestured to it. "This is the guardian of the plains. Defeat your fear before it devours your heart." Thomas could barely breathe. "I can't fight that thing." "You can," said the youngest, "but not with steel. Only truth can break it." The bison charged, the earth splitting beneath its hooves. Thomas dove aside, heart pounding. The sisters did not move. They only watched. Thus filled his lungs, his body shaking. He realized what the youngest meant. This wasn't a battle of strength. It was a battle of spirit. He stood tall and faced the beast. "I am not your enemy," he shouted into the storm. "I've harmed no one. I only want peace." The bison halted, snorting clouds of fire. When the dust cleared, the canyon faded, and Thomas found himself back at the ranch. The sisters stood before him, proud and silent. The eldest nodded. "You have passed the first test." The second added, "But the spirits are not done." And as thunder rolled once more over the desert, Thomas knew this was only the beginning. The storm clouds did not fade that evening. They hung heavy above the ranch like dark watchers. The sisters stood by the barn, their faces unreadable in the dim light. The air smelled of rain and destiny. The eldest sister stepped forward, her eyes glowing faintly. "The spirits have seen your heart," she said. "But their final test is not of strength or fear, it is of choice." Thomas frowned. "Choice?" She nodded. "The bond between you and us can bring balance or destruction. You must choose what kind of man you are." Without warning, lightning split the sky. The ground cracked open, and from the earth rose shadowy figures, ghostly warriors with hollow eyes, spirits of the forgotten. They circled Thomas, whispering words that chilled his soul. "Power, land, gold, all yours if you command them." The second sister's voice cut through the whispers. "These are temptations, Thomas Halle. If you take their offer, the spirits will give you power, but your soul will be theirs forever." The shadows closed in, their cold hands brushing his shoulders. Visions flashed in his mind, his ranch thriving, gold buried in the hills, men bowing to his name. He could have it all, with one word. And he saw the sisters beside him now, not as strangers, but as guardians sent to test his spirit. Thomas clenched his fists. "I don't want power. I just want peace." The shadows hissed and shrank away, vanishing into the earth with a sound like the dying wind. The thunder rolled once, and then the sky cleared. Moonlight fell upon the land, pure and calm. The eldest smiled a rare, genuine smile. "You have chosen well, husband." The second sister bowed her head. "The spirits are satisfied. Our duty here is done." The youngest looked at him with warmth. "You were never our prisoner, Thomas Halle. You were our proof that even in a world of greed, there can still be honor." As dawn broke, the three sisters stood at the edge of the ranch, their figures glowing faintly before fading into the rising sun. The chief's voice seemed to echo in the wind. "They guard the land, and now, so will you." Thomas watched the horizon, heart steady for the first time in years. He turned to the camera of fate, his voice calm and sure. "Stories like this remind us strength isn't in power. It's in choosing what's right. If you believe in that kind of courage, don't forget to subscribe for more stories of spirit and destiny." And as the desert wind whispered through the barn, a new legend was born.